The UK government will issue a formal apology and compensate over $200 million to Jamaican and Caribbean nationals who are part of the Windrush generation. Today, we're taking a closer look at the Windrush Compensation Scheme, specifically where things stand now in April 2025.
Right.
And we want to focus particularly on how it affects Jamaican nationals. We've gathered some info to really, understand the progress.
Yeah, it's definitely a crucial area to examine, maybe just to set the scene a bit.
Please do.
So the Windrush generation, we're talking about people from Caribbean countries invited to the UK between roughly 1948 and 1971.
To help rebuild after the war, wasn't it?
Exactly. A lot arrived on the HMT Empire Windrush back in 48, hence the name. And importantly, they had the absolute right to live and work here permanently.
Okay.
But, and this is the key thing, many didn't get sort of formal paperwork confirming their status back then.
Which didn't seem like a big deal at the time, I suppose.
Probably not, no. But fast forward decades.
And then things changed. Immigration laws tightened up.
Right. That combined with, frankly, poor government record-keeping over the years, it created this terrible situation.
Where people who lived here legally for 50, 60 years were
suddenly being told they were illegal immigrants. Yeah.
It's hard to even imagine the kind of stress and, well, the injustice of that.
Oh, absolutely. And the consequences were, well, pretty severe. People lost jobs. They were wrongly denied health care.
Homes as well, I read.
Homes too, yes. And unbelievably, some were even detained or deported from the country they considered home.
Just devastating. The financial hit, the emotional pain.
Exactly, for countless people and their families.
So in response to all this, the government launched the Windrush Compensation Scheme.
Yeah.
That was April 2019.
That's right, April 2019, set up by the UK Home Office.
And the main goal is, what? To acknowledge the wrongs and offer compensation.
Precisely. It's about acknowledging those, well, profound injustices and trying to offer some form of redress through financial payments to those affected.
Okay. And what sort of things does the compensation cover?
Well, it aims to cover a whole range of losses that came directly from being unable to prove their status. So things like loss of employment,
right,
setbacks in education, homelessness, immigration fees they shouldn't have paid.
And the emotional impact, too.
Very much so. Emotional distress is a key part. And, of course, those terrible experiences of detention or even removal from the UK.
Now, I remember when it launched, there was a figure mentioned, around $200 million.
Yeah, that was the initial estimate put out there.
But it's not capped at that, is it?
No, that's really important. The government has stated it's not budget limited, so the necessary funds should be available to compensate everyone who's eligible.
Okay, good. So bringing us right up to date then, April 2025.
Yeah.
Is the scheme still active?
Yes, absolutely. It's fully operational. And as you said, this is particularly relevant for Jamaican nationals from the Windrush generation and their families, too.
And there was a deadline initially.
There was, but a really significant point now is that the deadline to apply has actually been extended indefinitely.
Indefinitely. Wow. Okay. That seems like a major and necessary adjustment.
It does. It removes that pressure of a cutoff date.
So who exactly qualifies? Let's break that down a bit.
Okay. So the main group is individuals who arrived in the UK from a Commonwealth country like Jamaica, obviously before the 1st of January 1973.
Right, the original arrivals.
Yes. But it also includes their children and even their grandchildren if they also suffered losses because they couldn't prove their lawful status, perhaps linked to their parents' or grandparents' situation.
Ah, okay, so it extends down the generations.
It does. And there's another group, people who arrived before the 31st of December 1988 and are now settled here legally but faced issues before that.
I see.
Then there are close family members, partners, kids, parents, siblings of someone eligible who themselves face significant losses because of the situation.
So the impact rippled outwards.
Definitely. And finally, people can claim on behalf of eligible individuals who have sadly passed away, representatives of their estate.
That covers a lot of ground. And the types of losses. You mentioned employment, housing. What else?
It's meant to be pretty comprehensive. So, yes, employment issues, immigration fees paid in error, housing problems like homelessness or just being unable to rent.
Healthcare, education.
Yes, lack of access to healthcare or education, problems getting, basic things like driving licenses or opening bank accounts.
Just daily life stuff.
Exactly. Disruptions to daily life, missing weddings, funerals, not being able to travel. And then the most severe impacts, detention, and removal, plus any extra living costs people had because their status was up in the air.
It really tries to capture the wide-ranging impact, doesn't it?
That's the intention, yes, to address how multifaceted this whole injustice was.
Okay, so let's talk money. How does the compensation actually work? Are there set amounts?
Well, there's a sort of tiered approach. Once your eligibility is confirmed, you get a minimum early payment £10,000 while they assess the full claim.
Right, like an initial acknowledgement.
Exactly. Then the total amount, it can vary a lot, potentially up to £100,000, maybe even more. It really depends on how severe and long-lasting the impact was.
So how do they judge severity?
The Home Office uses different levels. Level 1 is for inconvenience, starting at that £10,000 baseline. It goes up through levels, right up to level 5.
And level 5 is 4.
That's for cases where the impact has been really profound, likely irreversible, and compensation there could go over £100,000.
That system gives some idea of the scale. Okay, so if someone listening thinks they, or maybe a relative, might be eligible, what's the actual process? How do they claim? And is there help?
Right. So the first step is submitting the claim form directly to the Windrush Compensation Scheme. Now, if someone gets an offer back and they're not happy with it,
They can challenge it.
yes. First, they can ask the Home Office for an internal review. If they're still not satisfied after that, they can take it to an external review by an independent adjudicator.
So there's an independent check?
Yes, an important safeguard. And crucially, there's free independent help available for claimants. Organizations like We Are Group offer support through the whole process.
That's really good to know. It must be daunting otherwise.
Absolutely. And there's also a dedicated helpline number people in the UK can call. It's 0800-678-1925, open weekdays.
Okay, 0800-678-1925. We'll make sure that's clear. Now, despite all this structure, we have heard reports, haven't we, about ongoing difficulties, challenges with the scheme.
Yes. It hasn't been entirely smooth sailing, that's fair to say. There was a very significant case recently, actually. Raymond Lee, who was born in Jamaica.
What happened there?
Well, his initial claim for compensation was rejected by the Home Office, but just last month, March 2025, a judicial review overturned that rejection.
A court challenge.
Exactly. The court basically said the Home Office had applied the immigration law incorrectly in his specific case.
Wow. And what does that mean more broadly?
Well, it's potentially quite significant. It could set a precedent, you know. It might impact other Jamaican nationals and perhaps others, too, whose claims were turned down for similar reasons.
So it highlights that maybe the interpretation or application of the rules hasn't always been right.
Precisely. It suggests there might have been systemic issues in how some claims were assessed.
And is the Jamaican government involved in trying to address these things?
Yes, our information is that they are. They're apparently in ongoing talks with the UK authorities, raising concerns about the process and really pushing to make sure the rights and needs of affected Jamaicans are properly met.
The continued dialogue seems vital.
It really is, to keep the pressure on and work towards solutions.
It does sound like there's still work needed to make sure everyone eligible gets fair treatment. You also mentioned something about urgent and exceptional payments. What are those?
Ah, yes. So these are separate from the main compensation claim. They're designed for people facing immediate urgent financial hardship because of the Windrush issues.
Like a safety net.
Exactly. If someone's in a really vulnerable spot financially, they can apply for one of these urgent payments while their main claim is still being processed. It's for immediate needs.
That sounds incredibly important for people in dire straits.
It absolutely is.
And finally, we heard the Jamaican government has also helped identify people affected.
Yes, that's right. Through their own efforts, they've helped identify around 3,600 individuals who, as part of this whole process of trying to right the wrongs, have now actually been granted British citizenship.
So sorting out the status issue itself.
Correct. A positive step showing some collaboration to regularize people's status.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. To recap our deep dives today, the Windrush Compensation Scheme, launched back in April 2019, is definitely still active as we speak in April 2025. It's particularly relevant for Jamaican nationals, but also others from the Commonwealth affected by this. And crucially, that application deadline, gone. It's open indefinitely now.
Correct. No cutoff date.
There have been challenges, yes, and we've seen recent court cases highlighting potential issues in how claims were assessed. The Jamaican government is actively involved in pushing for improvements.
Yes, ongoing engagement there.
But the scheme is there to provide compensation for a really wide range of losses, from employment and housing to emotional distress and even detention, and there's support available.
Free support and those urgent payments for immediate hardship.
Right. So if you're listening and you think this might apply to you or maybe someone in your family, what's the advice?
Well, the best thing is to seek proper information. We definitely recommend looking at the official UK government website for the Windrush Compensation Scheme. Lots of details there.
Okay.
Or for specific advice, especially for Jamaican nationals, contacting the Jamaican Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade could be really helpful. They can offer guidance.
Great advice. Okay, let's leave our listeners with a thought. We've talked a lot about the mechanics of this scheme, trying to fix a historical wrong. But maybe reflect on the sheer complexity of that. The lasting impact immigration policies have on real people, families, entire communities. What does it genuinely mean for a government to try and make amends years later?
Yeah, and what about the role of just individual determination, the sheer perseverance it takes for people caught up in this to keep fighting for justice?
Lots to think about there. Thank you for breaking that down with us today.
A pleasure.